Hello, Vanessa.
Hi.
My name is Brandy. I know this is your first time kind of meeting me, and you worked with an intake worker who took down some basic information about what had happened. And I have been able to kind of review that. So you don't have to go back through all those things if you don't want to, but this is also a safe and free space for you to go over anything that you might want to go over again, because it helps to kind of talk it out. But I want to give you the freedom to know that I have reviewed the notes that she gave me. I will remind you that anything that's said that involves harm to self or harm to others, or involves child abuse or a harm to an adult that is a dependent, are things where I'll have to breach your confidentiality. In other words, what you tell me I can't keep only to myself. But as long as those things don't come out, whatever we say between the two of us stays between the two of us. I try to make my space as safe as possible, so this is somewhere where you can explore anything that you may need to. If you need to pause, if I ask you a question that's too much and you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. Do you have any questions for me or things that you want to know about me before we get started?
No, not really. No.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about what you were hoping to get out of today.
I guess to be able to function better,
Okay.
or at least to see a possibility of functioning better.
So you're concerned with functioning better. What does that mean? What does functioning better mean?
Well, I had some issues at work, so I'm on a leave of absence from work because of my situation, what happened, and I want to get back to work and be able to do the things I used to do before I was attacked.
Okay.
But right now it's difficult. I can still do some things, but there are a lot of things I can't.
Okay, so you want to be able to get back to the way that you functioned before the assault happened, but you're finding that difficult to do, and you're finding it difficult to figure out how to get back to that place. Okay, what are you finding difficult? What are the things that are bothering you right now?
Well, leaving the apartment is difficult sometimes. Not every time, but a lot of the time. I know. For about 2 weeks after the assault, I would be late to work for about an hour. I'd be about an hour late, or sometimes a little bit more, and I just started freaking out when I tried to leave the apartment. Like, I would think that I might see him again, and I don't want to see him again because of what he did. And I also have not been going out with my friends as much, mainly because I feel like some of them are judging me. Not all of them, but a few of them I feel like they are, even though I know they're not. I kind of question what comes out of their mouths. Like, do you really mean that, or are you thinking in the back of your mind you deserved it, kind of thing? Or it didn't really happen, you're just making it up. And I also want to be able to talk to my family again. I haven't really talked to them a lot.
Does your family know about the assault?
No.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're feeling a lot of fear, and it's making you want to stay more at home because that's a safe place for you to be. You're worried and concerned about how your friends may be judging you around the assault, okay? And you want to be able to tell your family about the assault, but you haven't been able to yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That is a lot of things that you're bringing into bear, and those probably do feel odd to you because that's not what your normal felt like before the assault happened. Okay, believe it or not, when we are confronted with a situation that feels life-threatening, and this situation that you went through had that feeling to it from what you shared with the intake worker, our mind and body does certain things to help us cope in those moments, and it doesn't always go away once we're out of that terrifying moment. If you want to think about it, it's actually kind of brilliant. We're designed so that we go into almost like a safety mode. Something has overwhelmed us and made us feel unsafe, so now our mind and body reacts in certain ways in order to make us feel safe again. One of those things that happens during the assault is sometimes we just kind of zone out. We try not to be physically present in our body when the assault is happening. Immediately after the assault, what tends to happen is we get completely back into our body again, and every sight, sound, smell, feeling, texture, everything around us suddenly seems so much bigger than it used to be. And I think that's kind of what you're describing when you say, you don't want to go out of your house because, everywhere seems dangerous. Everywhere seems like it has the potential to see him again or for you to get hurt. That's your body on safety mode, right? It's not going to miss any opportunity to keep you safe. So while it seems like that's a completely normal response, this is probably not the normal you want to stick with, is it?
No.
But it's actually quite brilliant because your mind says, I didn't see the danger coming this time. I'm not going to miss any potential danger that happens from this point out. There is a time limit to the amount of time that it takes for us to process some of that. And you'll find that will lessen over time. And if it doesn't, then we have other ways that we can kind of cope with that. But for most people, it takes a few months, maybe a little longer, for them to kind of get past that hyper-awareness and hyper-arousal. That's what we call those things, is when we're processing everything at that heightened level. It takes some people longer than others. I'm going to give you a basic truth that I've recognized after working with clients for a long, long time. You may never get completely back to pre-assault, where you don't always kind of look at things with a little bit more attention than you used to. It's almost like the assault changes our worldview a little bit. If you want to think about the way we look at the world as a pair of glasses, having gone through this may change the way you perceive the world around you. And that's not a bad thing. It just means that we need to learn the instructions that go with our new set of glasses. And that's kind of what coming and talking to somebody allows us an opportunity to do, is learn a new way to see the world through this set of glasses. Does that sound scary?
No, not scary, just kind of a lot.
Well, and that was a lot of words that I threw at you, so that's okay. Can I take you for a moment because the support that we have after something like this has happened is so important to us. And I hear you saying that you're kind of pulling back a little bit from your friends because they've been a little judgmental. And if I remember correctly from reading what you gave our intake worker, there was some drinking involved with the assault. And I know that people can be quite judgmental about drinking and assaults. Have you experienced some of that?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Well, when I reported it, the first thing the cop asked me was like, what were you drinking? Were you drunk? And I explained that I only had one drink, but because I always stop myself at one drink, because no matter how comfortable I am, I don't want to get in a situation where I don't have control over myself. Even if I'm with friends or in my own apartment, I stop at one drink because I don't want to lose control of myself, or like I've heard a lot of horror stories about people who get blackout drunk, so I never want to be that way. So like, yes, I had been drinking, but it wasn't nearly enough to make me black out or to make me imagine something happening, which I've had a couple friends ask me, like, are you sure you just weren't so drunk that you thought it happened and you didn't know what happened? And these are friends who've known me so long that they know that I don't drink to that excess. Like, I don't let that happen. And so yeah, I pulled away from a couple of them, especially the ones who were asking those questions, and then the one who knows him.
sounds terrible to have to deal with so many judgments from people that you trust and that you felt like really knew you, but are now making statements that don't feel like they knew you at all.
Yeah.
Okay. And how about family? How do you feel like they would respond? I know you haven't told them yet, but.
Well, like I think my dad would want to go and beat the hell out of the guy. But I mean, they're 4 hours away, and they know something's up because I haven't been calling or talking to them as much, and I haven't visited for a while, and so they know something is different or something's going on, and like I don't think that they would judge me, but I would always feel like they would kind of look at me like we need to look after her because she makes wrong decisions and at least a bad thing. So I feel like they would judge me, but not like my friends were. Like there'd be more protective judgment.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I were to say some of the good reasons not to tell your parents, it sounds like would be you're protecting your father because you'd be worried he'd get in trouble and he'd want to go hunt the guy down.
Yeah.
And you're worried that they kind of may view you more as a child again and want to jump in there and protect you rather than meeting you as the adult that you are.
Yeah.
And listening to what actually happened in the situation. They'd be jumping into parent mode. So those are some good reasons not to tell your parents about what happened, because you don't want to experience those things when you're already overwhelmed with everything else that's happening. What are some good reasons to tell your parents about what happened?
Well, I mean, because I know that they'll be here. They'll come down and talk to me, or they'll come down and try and help me. But I know I'm gonna have to, because eventually if I don't tell them, they'll come down and be like, what's going on? Why aren't you calling us?
Parent radar, right?
Yeah. And I mean, right now I'm very limited on friends, so I don't have a lot of people I can talk to. So it would be someone else I can talk to or count on to come if I start freaking out and be there for me.
So you say they're recognizing that something's going on, and that their reaction to something going on is to come to town and figure out what it is.
Yeah.
How close are we to that possibility?
Well, I ignored my mom's call the other day and just texted her and said I was busy. And she knows I don't really ignore her calls, so she basically kind of left me a voicemail like I need to call and talk to her or she's gonna come down.
So we're very close to the potential for them coming down. Okay, so knowing that that deadline is approaching, if I were to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how close are you to telling your parents about the assault and what happened? 1 being, no way, this conversation is not happening, to 10 being, oh yeah, I gotta have this conversation as soon as possible.
I mean, right now I'm at I'd say a 6, but I know when they get here, I have to be up higher because it's gonna have to happen.
Okay, so to some extent, the 6 is because you feel like you don't want to have the conversation, but you want to kind of more than a 5?
Yeah.
Okay. And what would make you more comfortable without them as the catalyst to make it more of an 8?
I mean, probably just knowing that they would talk, that they would be there for me. So just kind of understand, like telling myself, like you need to tell them because you know that they'll help you and that they'll be there for you. And because, I mean, I'm getting to the point where I don't really have anyone I can talk to. So I need someone to talk to.
Okay. So if we could do a role play that would help you come up with the language to tell them in a safer way that felt like you could control some of your concerns, would that help you feel more empowered to be able to have that conversation, more able to have that conversation with them?
And we can try.
Okay. Up time. Okay. Now that we've kind of done a role play, does that make you feel a little more comfortable with how it might go if you talk to your parents and what you might be able to say?
Yeah.
Okay. And we've talked a little bit after that role play also about just the impact of going through an assault like this and what it does and how it impacts us, how it affects us. Do you think maybe for homework tonight, you'd be willing to kind of take this handout that we went through that talks about the impact of having been through an assault and think about that role play and really write about what you really want to kind of get through to your parents to help them understand what you've been through? Almost like write a little speech for yourself.
Yeah, I can do that.
Would that help you feel more secure about it if you had kind of a list of what you wanted to say before you talked to them?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, since we know if we ignore mom, that pushes your deadline, do you think I could get you to commit to calling mom back tonight and just letting her know that something has happened but you're not quite ready to talk about it, and maybe schedule a time when you can talk to them, even if it's going home and being able to talk to them about what has happened?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
A little hesitation in your voice, and you don't have to commit to telling her a lot. You can Vanessa size that, make it your own words.
I think I'd be okay with telling her, I'm not ready to talk about it, but I almost wonder how far she's gonna push because she's a bit of a helicopter mom.
Okay, so if she pushes, what can you do?
Just tell her I can't talk about it, but I will.
Okay, and if you give her I'm willing to come next weekend, that gives us one more session to practice this before you go, would that put her off a little bit or would that light her up more? It's okay, you could be honest about it.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think she'd be okay with waiting if I gave her I am gonna come home or you guys come down kind of thing. So I think that might be better, giving her a deadline, I'm coming home or you're coming down here.
Okay.
And just letting her know that right now I'm okay. I'm safe, but there are things happening that I can't talk about right now.
Okay, well, and I will say, if you need to talk more after that conversation happens, I know we're not scheduling again until next week, but you can always call in. Now, I may not be free to talk to you in the moment you call in, but I do try and return my phone calls within the same day that they happen, as long as you've called during the office day.
Okay.
So, good luck.
Thank you.
And I think that's a big move for you. This has been an incredible session. You've been very present with me, and I'm sure that's been exhausting for you.
Yes.
But I appreciate that you have that full presence with me. At the next session, I'll make sure and have a copy of the notes that I type up from this session, and we can review those a little bit to see how this session went for you and where we want to go from here, and we can practice some more of that dialogue that you come up with.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Based upon the fact that Vanessa is a college-educated, fairly healthy individual with a lot of insight and cognitive ability in the stage of emerging adulthood when a sexual assault occurred, I utilized motivational interviewing to help determine what stage of motivation Vanessa was in to try and deal with some of the outcomes of the trauma, as well as trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy in order to help her understand the trauma by normalizing it, empowering her, and reframing some of the things that she was experiencing in terms of survival and coping mechanisms and skills. So my first goal in the video was to develop a rapport with Vanessa, which I think was accomplished quite well. Next, I needed to get her to understand I needed to get to her understanding of the assault and how it impacted her. So I asked some open-ended questions, summarized some of the things that she said, tried to provide a couple of reflections. I didn't have a lot of affirmations, but I got a few affirmations in there with some empowerment. I used an MI style throughout most of the first part of the video, trying to collaborate and meet Vanessa where she was at, and also trying to create space so that she felt like she was in control of the session. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral tools of normalizing her trauma responses, especially focused around hypervigilance and hyper-awarenessness, since those are two of the things that she really focused on in her discussion with me. I also used some reframing to get at her view of the responses. I kind of reframed them as safety mode, and part of the way that her mind was protecting her body after that traumatic assault had happened. The issue of telling her parents about the assault seemed to come to the forefront in trying to gain her more support so that she could deal with the trauma that was happening, especially given the negative response that her friends were having to the assault. Vanessa had a fairly healthy view on the fact that the consumption of alcohol did not make it her fault that the assault had happened, so I chose not to go in that direction since she didn't seem to need any reinforcement for that view. With the issue of telling her parents, I worked a decisional balance with her from the motivational interviewing techniques to help her explore the pros and cons of telling her parents. Once I was able to kind of determine by using a scale that she was fairly motivated to tell her parents, especially since it seems like they could potentially come to town if she didn't tell them soon. Then we were able to I was able to gain consent from her to try a role play so that I can empower her a little bit more by helping her explain what had happened and feel like she had some mastery over that explanation and maybe some power over how she was going to tell her parents and how she was going to react to their responses. The role play was done off camera, so you won't see that part. What you'll see is just the first 15 minutes of our session, and then the role play is cut out, and then you'll see the end of our session where I summarize some of what we've done, and we make a decision on the homework to help Vanessa feel a little more empowered. She's going to practice writing out a speech, and she's also going to be calling her mom in order to set up a time for that discussion to happen. So that is kind of my rationale and what happened in terms of the video. Thank you.